Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today we're going to be continuing with the Ultra Rare Miracle Collection set with the Gold Paladin standard deck that comes out of there. So it's going to be our FutureFight for Friday. So happy Friday, guys. I'm actually up recording this super late, so my face is shadowy. You know why, because it's like the middle of the night and I'm only using the light above me for light, but yeah, hashtag team no sleep, boys. But yeah, I don't think that there's any announcements to get into. Kind of just want to like pump this out and get it done, so we're gonna get right into it. No delays or distractions as usual. Before we get started, as usual, subscribe below and click the bell button if you haven't already, so that you can stay updated with the content of the Cardfight Empire channel and not miss a video. Also check out our social medias down below, and if you're interested in supporting the channel more than just giving your likes and your subscribe and your love, you can give monetary value to the channel by joining the Patreon or buying from the merch store. So definitely look into those if you're interested in that. I want to mention our sponsor, Dabbers Cards and Games, local card shop in Georgia. They have all your card game wants and needs, anything ranging from most of all the card games I think they have. I don't think they're lacking in any card game. They have a ton of cool Japanese stock, like sleeves, anything from like sleeves to plushies. They also have video games in their store as well as video game tournaments. So definitely, if you live in Atlanta or you're visiting Atlanta, I would definitely give them a check out. See, look at me, guys, I can't even speak. But I would definitely check them out. But with that being said, let's get right into the Gold Paladin deck. So the Gold Paladin standard deck, in my honest opinion, is very, very boring. Like, it's like one of the most boring Accel decks there is. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, this deck gets a lot more spicy with the premium version of it. But with that being said, let's get right into it. So we have 4 Incandescent Lion Blonde Accel as our start, like our main grade 3. It basically allows us to superior ride to 3 before our opponent reaches 3. So that means that this deck usually wants to go first. If it goes second, it's kind of meh. But if it goes first, this can be really, really good to put pressure on your opponent before they can, do anything because you're essentially a turn ahead of them. When you do it when you go second, you're essentially just like skipping a turn of pressure on yourself and putting yourself on a 12k base, which is still good, don't get me wrong, but it is definitely worse than if you go first and you can force a lot of advantage through the attacking on your opponent. So its activation ability activates from hand if you have a Knight of Superior Skills Bowmain, which is here, and a Knight of Elegant Skills Gareth, which is here. On your Vanguard or Rearguard circle, you can Soul Blast 1 Crimson Lion Criff, which is your starter, and then you can ride this card as stand, and if your opponent's Vanguard is only grade 2 or less, then this unit gets -1 drive. So, like I said, allows you to ride up before your opponent. Ideally, you want to do this while your opponent is on grade 1, which means that you go first, your opponent goes and rides a grade 1, you ride Bowmains, and then you call Gareth from the deck, and then you have Blonde Accel in your hand ready to go. Boom, superior ride. So that's ideally when you want to do it. If not, still do it, I say, but it just won't be as good. The second ability is when it attacks, you may call a card from your hand to rearguard. A lot of cards in this deck have on-place abilities that when placed from hand do something, so like Sagramore, Vivian, Dendrain, when placed due to a card's ability in general, they all do stuff. So allowing you to play a card to a rearguard circle when it attacks is really good, because also since it's Accel, you can attack with whatever's in your Accel circle and then attack with Blonde Accel and call over that card, and then most likely get an effect off of it as long as you have soul. Something else that I should mention is this deck is like heavily soul reliant, so you do want to keep track of how much soul you have, because there's a lot of soul based effects that you'll be using. Our backup grade 3 is for Battlefield Storm Sagamore. Sagamore has a pretty simplistic effect. Vanguard Rearguard Circle, when it's placed from hand, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, call a card to your Rearguard Circle. So it does let you draw a card, which like basically gives you a free card to the board that you're playing. But if you, like, I've gotten into some situations with this card where you draw into a crappy card and then you're forced to play a card from your hand that you don't want to play. So it can be kind of up in the air about how good this card really is. But you can definitely use it to call things that get skills off of being placed, like such as Bowmains, Gareth, Dindrain, stuff like that. So yeah, pretty good. Both of them have Accel, so when you ride both of them, you get an Accel marker. Pretty basic, or pretty standard, I should say. Moving on to our grade 2s, we have 4 Knight of Superior Skills Bowmains. So Bowmains has 2 abilities. The first one is a Vanguard Rearguard when placed from hand. So when you place it from your hand on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, you can discard a card, and you search your deck for 1 Gareth, and you call it to Rearguard Circle. When you call a Gareth, Gareth can actually proc its skill to counterboss 1 and gain +10. So that's pretty good, because you can force pressure on your opponent by having like a larger attack base. So that's cool combo for you to do against your opponent. Usually when you do it on your opponent, they are grade 1 or grade 2. So by getting 10k to this, it'll be 18, and then you can force your pressure by just attacking with a bigger base power. So that'll be pretty cool. And then the secondary ability is when it's on the Rearguard Circle, when it's placed by your card's ability, this card gets 3000 power, so it becomes a 12k base when you call it due to an effect. Which pretty much when you're calling it, unless you're just calling it straight from your hand, like during the main phase, you will be calling it by an effect, which is pretty good. Then you have 4 Player of the Holy Bow Vivian. Vivian has a Vanguard Rearguard skill as well. It says when placed from hand, counterboss 1, Soul Blast 1, and then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you call up to 1 card to the Rearguard Circle from among them, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order, and this card gets plus 3000 power. So becomes a 12k when you use its skill, then also gets you a free card. Whether that card would be good or bad, it's kind of like up to what your top 3 decides to give you, but usually like top 3 is enough to give you like at least 1 decent unit, if not a range of like choices for you to call. So that's pretty good. Then we have 3 Lop-Ear Shooter. Lop-Ear Shooter is great for like at the end of the battle, and you can also like drive check this and then call it to the field after the battle, which is pretty cool. But its hand ability is at the end of the battle that you're grade 2 or greater Vanguard attack, you can actually counterboss 1, call this card to Rearguard Circle, and it gets plus 5000 power, which since it becomes a 14k base, it is able to hit Force clans by itself, so that's really, really solid, and just allows you some extra attacks as well. Then rounding out the grade 2 lineup, we run 2 Golden Beast Rampage Turtle. I did want to run more of this card, but I couldn't really find the space. I've thought about cutting Lop-Ear Shooter because this card's just so good, but there are some situations where this card is not as good, or your opponent like spams their board and then they're retiring your units as well, like Shadow Paladin or something like that. So you definitely want to be careful with how many of these you put in the deck. But Rampage Turtle is basically our Accel card that makes them guard with 2 or more cards. Every Accel clan basically has one. They just usually all have different conditions. This one's condition is during the battle that I attacked, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, then your opponent has to guard with 2 cards. So having more rear guards than your opponent when you play Accel is pretty easy. Unless you're playing against Kagura and they no value, you lose your whole board or something like that. You might not recover it enough to have more rear guards than your opponent after that. But against any other deck, like it's pretty easy to get that. And then your opponent has to guard with 2 cards, which when they're at 5 damage, that's when this card hurts them the most. Because you can attack for like the puniest attack, and they have to give you 2 cards from their hand. So essentially a PG's worth of cards. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 Evil Slaying Swordsman Hagen. So what Hagen does is adds a Vanguard Rearguard ability. It says when your Vanguard's attack hits, then you can look at the top card of your deck, If you do, you may call a card with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard's grade from among them to another rearguard circle. And then if you called, you retire a Hagen on your rearguard circle. So what this means is that this becomes our premium ride for grade 1, but it's also a really good rearguard. When you ride it, your opponent's probably going to let you hit on the first turn attack. So if you happen to top deck a grade 1, that's good. You can just call the grade 1. And if the grade 1 that you call is Hagen, that's fine. But if the grade 1 that you call is Gareth or Dendrain, that's really, really solid, because then you can proc their effects and get pluses as well. Especially if you call a Dendrain, that's really good. But if not, the card just goes back to the top. So if you check the top card and it's a trigger, and you decide not to call it, like I would, you put it back to the top of your deck, and then you know that you're gonna like damage check the trigger that next turn. So sometimes it's really useful to have that knowledge. Like let's say that you hit, you check the top card, it's a heal, and then you put it back on top of your deck. Then you can choose to, you know that you're gonna like heal the next turn, which is really, really good. Moving on to the next one, Knight of Elegant Skills Gareth. 4 Gareth in the deck, basically because you want to increase the consistency of seeing this card, and there's not really better grade 1s to run besides Gareth, to be honest. Maybe when more cards come out for Gold Paladin, this card will get replaced, but right now it's one of the best cards you have in Standard. But when it's placed on the rearguard circle by your card's ability, you can counterblast 1, this card gets 10,000 power, so really good against Force because it becomes 18k, which is actually something they have to guard 10 for. Or if it's on an Accel circle, it becomes 28, which is something that they actually have to give you a heal trigger for, or 2 cards out of their hand. So that's really, really good. Then we have 4 Listener True Dendrain. Honestly wish this card was at 8k, but I guess that would be too good. When placed on the rearguard circle due to your card's ability, use Soul Blast 1, and then you can draw a card or counter charge, and this unit gets 3,000 power. So becomes a 10k. Really good during those early rush turns where your opponent's like 10k or lower, and you can play this card using somebody's ability. Like let's say that you use Accel while they're on grade 1, and so then you can play Sagamore, call a Sagamore, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, call a Dendrain, Soul Blast 1, draw a card. So you're plussing, and then you're also like calling cards to threaten your opponent at the same time. Then for our starter, we have Crimson Lion Criff. Usually it doesn't matter what starter we run, but it is specifically important in this build that we run this one, seeing as it synergizes with Accel's skill, and we have to Soul Blast it for Accel's ability. And then for our triggers, we run 8 front triggers, 4 Sentinel triggers, the Draw, Halo Shield Mark, and then 4 Elixir Sommelier. So pretty basic, pretty standard, as one would say. The build is not really that interesting. Like I said, it's like a pretty boring Accel deck, but it does allow you to get, I would say, a little more advantage than most Accel decks do just off the rip, just doing nothing for it. So getting right into the games here, we have gold 1. So we're playing against Kagero game 1. I think for a majority of our games we actually saw Kagero players, which was kind of weird. But we ride Gareth and we attack into his Airmo. He no guards. And then he takes the damage. Calls Berserk Dragon. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card. And then attacks for 18. We take it as well because we don't really have a card that we're willing to throw out to guard that. So we actually do Bowmans, but we don't have the Accel, so we can't just use Accel. But we do call a Vivian from our hand and use the Vivian skill as well. So we attack Vanguard, we get a front trigger, he gets a heal trigger, which kind of sucks for us. We take the top card and it's a front trigger, which is kind of what I was talking about with Hagen. Like we leave it on the top, knowing that whenever our Vanguard gets damaged, we're going to check a front trigger, so that's cool. Our opponent attacks rearguard and hits 2 non-triggers, discards 1, attacks Vanguard, and we take it, we get a front trigger. So you know, now his rearguard cannot hit us, hit either one of our cards, and his other rearguard just attacks our rearguard, and then we're able to make our move. So we ride Accel off of top decking it, we call Sagamore, and then we call Bowmains, and I discarded a card like an idiot without checking how many Garrus I still had in this deck. So I was actually out of Garrus at that point, so be aware that if you do invoke this skill, you will discard a card and not get it back. So I used Accel's skill to call Dendrain on attack, and then I do check a front trigger, which ends up working out because, you know, I'm able to attack his rearguard than his Vanguard. But he does ride Waterfall, and he has the Gaius, so I have to guard this or I die, basically. So I 2 to pass him, he checks a crit trigger, and checks a Novell. So then he attacks my Vanguard with, he put the crit on rearguard and the power on Vanguard just in case he got the 2 to pass. But we do check a heal, and then we call Sagamore as well. Pretty much all we can do, but we do check a front trigger. But our opponent does check a crit trigger, which kind of sucked for us. But either way, I think he would have been able to guard our assault. But he does use Novell's skill here to make us retire our board, and Accel that really hurts. So I no-guarded his Vanguard. We took a damage. It was Bowmains, and then I guard and guard. So we re-ride Sagamore. I was hoping to draw a better card than a heal trigger to play on Accel, but we didn't, and we didn't check a front trigger, so front trigger would have honestly clutched us the game easy, but we just got lucky that he had 2 grade 3 or higher in his hand, so he actually could not block. He only could block one of our attacks, so it was worth throwing down that heal trigger after all, because it was just able to hit that 15 on his Novell. So moving on. Moving on to Gold Paladin 2. We're playing against Kagero again. Like I said, we saw a lot of Kagero players while we were testing this deck for whatever reason. But we ride Gareth, we attack. He damages. He rides Berserk, like all Kagero players happen to always have. We get a draw trigger on defensive. And we use the skill of Bowmains. Then we Superior ride Accel. Fortunately, we didn't go first in this game. It could have been so much better. But we do use a bunch of the skills to start getting pluses off. So, and then we call Vivian when we attack with Vanguard. So we attack his Vanguard a bunch of times, and he actually goes to 5 damage. So, because I guess he just didn't want to block. So then he G-assists and he doesn't get a 3. So I'm like, oh no, and then we get another draw trigger. So I was pretty sure at this point that we were actually going to win this game. We re-ride Accel, and we call a Lopier, move Lopier to the front, and then we call a Hagen. So we attack for 19. That damage trigger kind of ruined a lot of things, but it's fine. We attack with Accel as a Vanguard, and he no guards, basically making a 1 to pass, and because we did get the heal trigger, we put it all to Vanguard, and then he just loses. I guess he didn't want to risk guarding if he couldn't, because he was already behind. So he just decided that he was going to bank on a no guard on Vanguard, which probably wasn't all that smart, but I guess it was, you know, it's up to personal player preference if you start playing differently because you think that you're going to lose or something like that. Moving on, there we go. Moving on to game 3, Gold Paladin 3. Opponent is playing Kagero again. You guys thought I was joking when I said there's a lot of Kagero players on. Our opponent attacks us, we take it. We ride Bowmains, we call Gareth out, and then we call the Rampage Turtle. Rampage for free damage basically, because there's no way that he's going to waste 2 cards to block that. If he did, that would have been insane. But he does get like a really good early retire combo, so he's able to retire my board. I get a draw trigger though, so I'm able to dodge his Vanguard attack and block the other one. We don't have a grade 3 though, so we're kind of just playing at a disadvantage ourselves. So we do attack his rear guard, and he guards them. Then he attacks my rear guard, then attacks my rear guard with the Overlord, which I don't really understand why people are doing that against like Gold Paladin. It doesn't really like do much. Like, I'd be more scared if he's attacking my Vanguard, but he didn't do that. But we do hit a heal trigger. We G-assist, and we do get into the grade 3, which is Accel. We get rid of 2 cards, and then we call Gareth and use the skill to call Din Drain. We check 2 cards, and then we attack 10 to rearguard, and 14 to Vanguard, and then 18 to Vanguard. So he eats all those, and then he does Novell because he's at 5 damage. Like, we basically push him to 5. He uses Novell because of it. We guard him, and then I think he only used Novell because he thought that he was going to get Twin Drive, but yeah, it's only single drive. So he kind of like screwed himself there. But we PG, and I use Vivian skill, check top 3, got a Rampage Turtle, which was cool. And then I attack his rearguard for 12, attack his Vanguard for 18, attack his Vanguard for 12, and use the skill to call. We do get a front trigger and a draw trigger. So when we got the front trigger, like, obviously I didn't have to pick a target, and then we hit the draw trigger, I hit the all the Vanguard basically, since he 2'd past me, and then I got the win off of that. And game 4, our final Gold Paladin game. Yeah, game 4. I hope me chewing this gum during the video doesn't affect much. I just thought about the fact that I'm like chewing gum. It's keeping my breath minty fresh for these Kagura players. But yeah, game 4 we're actually playing against Murakumo for a change of pace. We get a pretty decent hand. Our opponent attacks us, and then we actually get the combo off on him, like I was telling you guys. So we actually got to go first, and we got the combo off, so it's pretty cool. Unfortunately, our opponent did check a damage trigger like on first damage, so that kind of sucked for us. But we're still able to attack a good number of times. He attacks our Vanguard and gets a crit. Like, he's getting super lucky right now, even though we are the higher grade, and we just take all of his attacks because we want to save like the real dangerous attacks for later. But we also don't want him to heal out of our stuff, so we did get a heal trigger there ourselves, and then we call Locky Eater, and then he calls him Mandala Lord, copies 2 cards, and then he calls his Zanbaku from his hand. We 2 to pass him, and attacks for 19, and then attacks, and then attacks. We guard, and we use Vivian skill to check top 3, put a card behind Gareth so that I can hit Vanguard. We attack for 19, and then we attack for 12, and then we check 2 cards, then we attack for 12, and he actually has to take it, but he's 6 damage heals, so I'm like, wow. So I'm like, not only can I not hit him, but I'm forced to attack his Vanguard, and then he rides Zanbaku and has the left arrestor in his hand from last turn, so he's able to just do the lock combo on me. So from there, I pretty much lost just because he's 6 damage healed. But yeah, it was pretty unfortunate for me. I just decided to take Vanguard, hoping that I would 6 damage heal back, but even if I did, like, I don't know if it would have won me the game, considering that my Vanguard is stunned and I can't ride. And then on top of that, he checks a crit, so I just decided to take my damage before he checked his second one and just call it a game. But that has been the FutureFight Vanguard video for Gold Paladin. I hope you guys enjoyed the video from the Ultra Rare Miracle Collection. If you guys did, be sure to leave a like on the video so that I know that you guys like content like this, and then we'll keep it up for the future. Comment down below letting me know what you thought of the deck and what's your favorite Gold Paladin thing, or is Gold Paladin fun to you or entertaining? Personally, to me, it's not, and my rating on the deck, I would probably give it about it's a solid deck, even though it's boring. I'll probably get about a 6.5 or 7 out of 10, so it's not bad at all. definitely does get a lot of good advantage while rushing your opponent. And if you go first, like, it becomes like a 8 out of 10 or like a 7 out of 10 solidly, because going first in this deck really matters. Like, it's like the first deck where I really care about going first. Except for, you know, Sambaku, the Mirakumo deck, you want to go second because you want to lock your opponent out and have the pieces already. But, you know, that has been the deck. So yeah, like I said, like, comment, subscribe down below so you can stay updated with content. And if you're interested in our sponsor or like monetizing the channel, anything like that, check that out down in the description down below. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a great weekend, guys. Peace.